Hello everyone，大家好啊，我是蔡律师，我们在新卫明律师事务所。今天呢，我和伊莎贝拉在一起，我们要讲一下我们这个视频呢是讲的关于文科社会科学的学者怎样办理美国绿卡。As you know, our law firm, New Wei Ming Law Group, we have a history of more than 15 years, and we obtained thousands of approvals for our clients, including scientists, researchers. And today, our topic is about Green Card application for social science scholars. 那么我们律所的其他的客户呢，有很多是科学家，比如我自己呢有化学的博士学位，有博士后的经历。我们律所有很多同事也都有理工科的这样的学位啊。但是呢，另外除此以外呢，我们律所也有很多客户来自社会科学、文科，比如说有经济学、社会学、政治学。其他的方面，这个文学等等这样的学者。那么在过去这个中文的环境下呢有一些人认为文科没有理科有用等等那这个呢是一种偏见文科有独特的用处这个尤其是哲学对于社会科学、对于政治学、对于法律有很多指导作用。那么我们今天呢，我和伊莎贝拉呢会讲一下关于政治学的一些这个基本的学派大家的看法这个政治哲学呢，这里面包括我们今天要讨论的呢，有这个霍布斯、有洛克，还有卢梭他们的政治哲学。So today, Isabella, who works at our law firm, will discuss some philosophical theory for the formation of government by Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau. So they all have different theories of how the government come into being. That's what I heard. So Isabella, now will you start to let us know what do you think is the basic theory of Hobbes?
Yeah, sure. So Hobbes lived through the English Civil War, which was just a terrible experience for him. And so his political theory at its core is all about the power of fear. So his ideal government is about probably ideally one sovereign who everybody collectively fears. And this is as opposed to in the state of nature where everybody fears each other and everything is constantly insecure. So it's interesting because although, living under a government which you constantly fear may not sound like a very ideal way to live, Hobbes' argument is that living in the state of nature is an even worse way to live because in the state of nature you fear everybody and everything is constantly insecure, whereas in the commonwealth that is created through the sovereign, everybody just collectively fears the sovereign and there is at least some security provided in that way. So Hobbes' argument is that without this commonwealth, without the fear that everybody has towards the sovereign, there is no enjoyment of various things that make up quality of life. So like art and science and all these other things, they only come about through the formation of the commonwealth. These things cannot exist in the state of nature because everything is constantly insecure.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I have also heard about the concept of the Leviathan and also the so-called Hobbes war or the war of everyone against everyone. 那么在中文世界里呢，我们大家也听说过，有的叫霍布斯世界或者利维坦或者所有人对所有人的战争那么这个呢是霍布斯的政治哲学。那么我们知道呢，洛克的政治哲学是大不相同的。So the next, maybe you can discuss about the political theory or the philosophical theory of government formation by Locke. Thank you.
Yeah, so Hobbes was pretty disliked for his Leviathan writings, and Locke was not excluded from this. Locke also didn't really like Hobbes' political theory. The main difference between them probably starts in their conceptions of the state of nature. So as I mentioned, in Hobbes' state of nature, everything is terribly chaotic and dangerous, and Locke has a slightly different view. In the beginning, at least, in his second treatise, he describes the state of nature as much more idealistic. So in the state of nature, we already have certain rights to our property, which includes like life, liberty, and estates, and all these things. So this is quite different from Hobbes, where we only acquire these kinds of rights through our sovereign, through our commonwealth. Locke says that we have these things by right of birth. And this is obviously quite influential in a lot of modern societies today. Because Locke's political theory of the state of nature is much more idealistic, the way that his political society develops is also very different. So because we have these rights to begin with, unlike Hobbes, where the sovereign can do anything, Locke says that the only way we can have a legitimate government in civil society is to have a government which aims to protect our natural rights. And as soon as that duty of government is violated, that government becomes illegitimate.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I do remember when I was in law school in Georgetown, I studied the course called property law, and that to a large extent is based on Locke's philosophy regarding the ownership of property. And besides Hobbes and Locke, the third very important philosopher is the French philosopher and writer Rousseau. So when I was in college, I read Rousseau's Confessions, which is very famous. And other than that, well, Rousseau also has his unique way of explaining how the government come into being, well, and the political theory. So can you introduce that?
Yeah, so besides Rousseau's Confessions, he also wrote a few other essays. So that includes the second discourse, which was the discourse on inequality, as well as his social contract theory. So what's interesting about Rousseau is that it's full of a lot of contradictions in a similar way to how Locke is full of contradictions, but Rousseau really revels in these contradictions a little more. So what's interesting is that in the second discourse, he describes the state of nature as very, very idealistic, even more so than Locke, to the point where he kind of mourns the steps that we take away from the state of nature. And you might wonder, like, okay, well, would he just say that ideally we would just return to the state of nature? If the state of nature is so idealistic, why are we even in civil society right now? Why don't we just return to it? And the answer is that he thinks that this process was irreversible. So ideally we would be in the state of nature, but now that we've taken steps away from it, we can't return to it. So that's his theory in the second discourse. In the social contract, he has a slightly different view. So the state of nature is still very idealistic, but he doesn't quite have the same kind of, like, I guess, a very negative view of civil society. He focuses on how civil society can sort of artificially rebuild all the freedoms and rights that we have originally in the state of nature.
Oh, thank you very much, Isabella, for the introduction. So as we discussed, at New Weiming Law Group, well, besides the natural scientists like chemists, physicists, we also obtained many approvals for other scholars like majored in economics, sociology, political science, education, and so on. So Isabella is working together with me at New Weiming Law Group and provided a lot of interesting ideas and helpful inputs in our preparation of the green card applications. 那么用中文来讨论一下呢，我们律所为很多的文科的学者取得了这样的批准。那么我们刚才讨论的呢是一些知名的 政治哲学这方面的学派啊。那么霍布斯呢强调政府提供了秩序啊，洛克呢强调政府可以保护个人的财产，包括生命、安全、自由等等啊。那么卢梭呢讲到的叫社会契约论啊，那么这个知名的说法叫人生而自由，但无往不在枷锁之中啊。那么这些社会哲学、政治哲学啊是非常重要的。那当然在中文环境里，因为众所周知的原因，很多时候呢，因为大家在传统上成长过程中不被允许思考和讨论这些问题，那么所有的人呢，有的时候他也就自然而然的接受，认为这些东西没有什么更多的可想的啊。实际上呢，这些对于个人来说啊，生活啊是非常重要、非常有意义的啊，对吧？我们大家平常也讲到，不能光埋头拉车，也要抬头看路。那么像刚才讲到的，那这些政治哲学他们的一些理念，对于我们准备绿卡申请的文本材料也可以起到很大的帮助作用啊。那么不管你是理工科还是文科啊，还是其他方面的学者或者专业人士啊，如果你有兴趣办理美国的绿卡和签证，我们都可以帮助到你。好，谢谢 ，Thank you。